Hey guys, so here we have a redesign I did recently on one of my customers' nails, and it's full of lovely autumnal colours, and one of the Glitter Fairies limited edition glitters, which has almost sold out. So I started off by taking off my client's previous set. I filed down to an extremely thin base, taken down the length, and I've done all my nail work prep. So I've pushed back the cuticles, I've etched and buffed the nail plate, and then I've dusted, and then I've just dehydrated. And how I do that is I go across the nails, I use 2 pads and go across once with each, and that's 2 pads for each hand, and I'm using my NSI Pure Plus. Just wipe across the nails, get a good scrub and get into all the nooks and crannies and make sure there's no dust and it's all nice and dehydrated. I'm now going to apply my forms. So I'm using the CJP forms, and I'm doubling up because I like them to be a little firmer than they are. And then I'm taking out the centre bit from one of the forms. If you use 2, it then becomes a little hard to roll, so I'll just use 1. And then I'm just going to roll between my thumbs, and I'm going to apply this to the nail. So I've got a nice C curve in that form before trying to apply it to the nail. And if need be, you can cut little half circles, little bits out of the form to make sure that they fit properly to your client's free edge. Using my thumbs to hold those tabs in place, and then putting the front tabs together, making sure they're aligned. If these are crooked, your form will be crooked, so you won't get a nice straight nail down the centre. And as you can see, I want these forms to come straight out from the nail because she's having her almond shape. If I was doing square, I'd slightly tilt them up a bit. Just make sure your form is never pointing down, because that will always affect your structure. You always want it to be coming straight out from the nail. And then I'm just going to get my scissors and just cut some little tabs. Now I was asked this before, you can do this before they're on the nail, it's entirely up to you. So line it up to the nail, see where the free edge and the corners of the nails will be, and then cut those little tabs in. When I do that, and then I can just pinch that form a little bit more, so that before you've even started, you've got a really nice pinch on that form, a nice C curve, and it really helps with the structure of your nails. I've then come in with my CJP Acid Primer. Now this is an acid primer, so less is more. So I've got the brush out and I tapped it a little bit on the kitchen towel, and then I went over the nails and I just put a tiny bit on each nail, and that one brush will do 5 fingers. And then that's it, and then you need to wait for that to go like a chalky white before you apply to it. Now if you use a non-acid primer, you can work on that when it still looks wet. I'm just showing you there the Autumn Crackle glitter, which was part of my Mix It Up Monday. Remember to join the Miss Lucy's and the Glitter Fairy group on Facebook, because then every week when I add the new... Oh, I'm so sorry, having a big old yawn there. Again, another tiring week. You must get tired of me wanging on about that. But every week when I add a new Mix It Up Monday glitter, you get the chance to help me name it. So I'm starting off by putting on a very, very thin clear base. The reason I do that is because I want a nice smooth transition from the free edge to the extension. Also, it means when I come to redesign, I can just file these nails down to a nice thin clear base and then put the new design of nail on top. And then I'm coming in with this lovely orange glitter from CJP. I'm pretty sure I used pumpkin pie and chili pepper. But as always, I've written in the description all the products I've used, so if you just have a little look at the description. So I started along that like free edge smile line, and I did a little blend up, and then I pulled and tapped down, and then just can see a tiny bit of clear on the end, so I'm just putting a little bit extra on the end there. And then I'm going to place a bead of Cranberry, also from CJP. Here, that cuticle area, get that nice blend of the cuticle, make sure there's a nice crisp line, and then I'm going to pat and pull and then blend it down. So you get that nice red to orange blend. I work with very thin layers, so I did want to add a little bit more colour, so I could add another layer there. The key is to work with really, really thin layers, and that's where sometimes people find that their ombres get a little bulky. It's because they're working with slightly too thick layers, and especially when you then come to cap, it might almost be a little pointless, because when you then file it in, you're just going to get rid of all that capping. So make sure you always work as thin as possible. CJP colours are really highly pigmented, so you shouldn't need to work very thick with them. And then I'm capping that entire nail in crystal glass, starting at the cuticle area and pat pull down. And the reason I cover my ombre in a crystal glass is because you've got that beautiful blend. Now, if you had worked a bit thicker and then you file into that, what you're going to do is you're going to file through that blend you've worked so hard to create, and then your ombre can just look a little bit dodgy, really. Looks a bit patchy in the middle, and sometimes like one colour will come through too bright instead of getting that lovely blend. So on the next nail I'm going to do exactly the same thing, creating that thin clear base. And as you can see on some of the nails, there's a tiny bit of acrylic left from the previous set. It's because I very rarely use acetone to soak off. I normally will file down to a thin clear base with my efile, and then come in just with my hand file and do like a very low grit hand file and do a bit of a buff. I've been doing this like quite a while, so I know where to stop not to hit my client's natural nails. So make sure, if you're not so experienced, just to take it really slowly, really gently, so that you don't then file into your client's natural nail. I'm then coming in with a Perfect Nails cover pink actually. This is Gold Shine. I found a tiny little bit left in a pot when I moved house recently, and it's a really nice peachy cover pink which has got tiny little flecks of gold. And then I'm just using a bead of clear acrylic to pick up some of that autumn crackle glitter, and then I'm creating a faded tip with it. Now this glitter is quite chunky, there's a lot of different shapes going on, so less is more. Pick up a small amount at a time, add that to the nail. If you want more, get a little bit more. If you pick up a big bead with this, you're going to have a lot of glitter to deal with, and as I said, because there's lots of different shapes and textures in this nail, if you work with a little bit, then you can get that in place, pat it nice and flat, you'll be alright in like then capping it. Whereas if you use quite a lot and it ends up a bit thick, you're going to struggle when you cap it. And then I'm getting a bead of crystal acrylic, crystal glass, placing at that cuticle area, and then tap, tap, pat, pull forward nice and gently, because you want to make sure all that glitter's encapsulated. And you'll know that because it all goes to that nice matte colour. Remember, if you need to add a little extra when capping, that's fine. Make sure that entire nail is capped. And then the little finger should be ready to pinch as well. So I'm just placing my pinching tool. Now you're only wanting to pinch the free edge, so you don't need to put the pinching tool really high up on that nail. I just use the very end of the pinching tool, just resting on those little fleshy bits on the finger. And then on the next finger I'm going to do exactly the same as I did on the last finger. So I'm starting with a thin clear base. And then I'm coming in with that Perfect Nails Cover Pink in that nice line around the cuticle area, and then pat and pull and then blend down. And then again, like I did last time, coming in with that glitter. So again, making sure I use small beads of acrylic to pick up a small amount of the glitter. So I'm building it up slowly, not getting a massive chunk on there, just working nice and slow. And I have to say, this is one of my favourite glitters I've ever mixed, because it is just, I mean, it looks like the crackling embers of a fire. Hello. Evie's come to say hello. Hello. So that's her sneezing into the microphone, I apologise. Oh, and she's left me again. So now we're coming in with that bead of crystal glass, starting near the cuticle area. So I always place it just a little bit before the cuticle area, and then use my brush to gently blend it back, making sure I always keep my brush between the acrylic and the cuticle. So making sure you don't get any acrylic the other side of your brush, so you're pushing it in to the cuticle area. And then I'm just patting and pulling and making sure that's all encapsulated. You know that because all the glitter goes nice and matte. So adding a tiny bit at the end there, because I want to just sit slightly thicker on the end, ready to cap. And then at this point, that nail before is ready to pinch. Now on this set of nails I've just used one pinching tool, but a lot of the time I've got 4 or 5 pinching tools, so I just keep kind of like stacking them on. So eventually your ladies will have an entire hand with pinching tools, nice and weighed down, so when you start on the other hand they can't then try and pick their phone up or busy themselves doing other things. And coming into this now, again starting with that thin clear base. And then coming in again with that pumpkin pie. This is such a lovely orange, and this is these are perfect colours for this time of year as well. And as you can see, I used the smallest bead and I've just blended it up, and that's given such a good coverage with just the smallest amounts. This is why you can work very small, very thin layers with this ombre. And then coming in with the cranberry, and I like cranberry because cranberry has a very slight shimmer to it as well. And I do find sometimes with that, if you use an acrylic with a bit of a shimmer on as your top ombre, that helps to soften as well. So if you're still new at ombres, that's a good trick. And then I'm just using my wet brush, so didn't get a bead of acrylic, just my wet brush tapped into the glitter, and then I'm just tapping a few bits of glitter in that kind of S shape I do a lot on nails. And then I'm going to cap this one in crystal glass. I'm not going to show you the thumb because the thumb I did the same as the other nails. And because a lot of people do comment that I don't show thumbs. The main reason I don't show thumbs is because I find it really tricky to get them at the angle where they're still filmed. Because if anyone knows my setup, like my armrest is quite high. So when it comes to the thumb, it's like the thumb gets a bit kind of in the camera. And then I'm just capping that entire nail. Pat, pat, tap and pull it down. Making sure it's entirely encapsulated in that crystal glass. Just a little bit I wanted to add on that side. Oh, look at me, I lied. I am going to show you the thumb. I did do this video about 2 weeks ago, so look at me lying away. Okay, I'm going to show you the thumb. I obviously managed to meet my camera. Special child. I'm doing the voiceover on a Sunday. Give me a break. So again, coming in with that thin clear base. And then coming in with that cover pink at the cuticle area and blending down. And picking up a bead of clear acrylic into that glitter and placing it on the nail. So there you go, for the first time in a long time you've had a real-time video with the full hand. And the other hand I did exactly the same, so that was mirror imaged. So just putting that all in, and then I'm going to cap that the same as I have the other ones. And now when removing the forms, make sure that you open up the back tabs, squeeze the end together and pull down away from the nail. Make sure you don't pull up because you will hurt your lady's hypernicum and they will let you know. So I'm going to remove all the forms and then I'm going to file a couple of the nails for you now. So my usual filing technique. So I'm going to start just a few swipes down those side walls, just to get a rough shape. And tidy up that free edge. Again, I'm not perfecting the shape, I'm just giving a rough shape of where I want the nail to be. and then very gently around that cuticle area. So it's more about pressure than the grit of file here, so nice and gentle, making sure you're not flattening off that apex that you've created, and then down the body of the nail. Try to make sure whenever you're filing, if you see an area that needs a bit of work, file the nail as a whole though. So a lot of errors in filing will happen when people say, oh, that bit's a bit bulky, so all they do is just file that one area of the nail, and then you've overfiled there, but then the other side now looks a bit wrong, and you can end up with kind of crooked, lopsided nails. So I always try and work my nails as a whole, so I'll start one side and work over to the other. So if that means on where I'm starting doesn't really need much work, so I'm very gentle filing there, and then I put a little more pressure on when I see the area that needs a bit of work. So I'm going to do that again. So sidewall, tidying up that free edge, and that's when I'll use my file, and I will put my file on a straight line coming out from that sidewall to make sure that the baseline of my nail is nice and straight. Just measuring up those nails to one another, making sure they're all being made a nice even length. And I don't do that from cuticle to tip, I do that from free edge to tip. And again, gently around that cuticle area, and then down the bulk of the nail. And if you've worked with nice thin layers, you won't cut into any of that glitter. And then when they're all filed and dusted off, I'm then going to come in with my CJP LED top gloss. And then I'm going to cure that in my LED lamp for 60 seconds. Then I'm using some of the Crystal Chameleon pigment in Shula, using a silicone tool just to apply that to that pinky finger. Use a pigment brush just to get off any excess, and then I'm going to put my first top coat on, and this will be a 30-second cure. And I only do that 30 seconds so it's part cured, so the second layer will adhere to it properly. And then popping on that second top coat, and this will get a full 60 seconds cure. And then when they're all cured and cooled down, just popping in a little bit of my NSI Natural Oil. And there you have it, guys. These are my autumn crackle nails, so I hope you've enjoyed that little video. Any comments, questions or requests, just pop that in the box below. Don't forget to check out my Facebook pages and also the Facebook group Miss Lucy's and the Glitter Fairy, of which there is also a link in the description. So thanks for tuning in, and see you again soon. Bye!